I'm continuing my series of MASH retro reviews with Season 2, Episode 19, The Chosen People. So the premise of this episode is that a family of Korean refugees arrives at the 477 and is claiming it's their land. Meanwhile, a young Korean lady from the nearby village shows up at camp claiming that one of the doctors is the father of her child. So, Henry has to deal with both. I should also mention that during this episode they have the return of Captain Park. He's visiting the 407. This time he's not playing poker alongside Sidney Friedman, but hey, he's visiting and he speaks Korean because he's Korean, therefore he can translate. That's probably the main reason why, because they wanted more effective translation. And actually they opened up the episode in OR with him observing and basically giving some humorous translations based off of what Hawkeye is saying. Which apparently Hawkeye can somewhat speak. Now, if any actual Korean speakers are watching and you want to watch this episode and tell me how accurate those translations are, let me know, because it's MASH. There's been some episodes where they have very abysmal Korean, so wouldn't surprise me at all. But the jokes are that basically they're just having fun with some humorous translations. But I do want you to just take a side note and talk about Frank, because he does play a role in this episode with his basically gung-ho American attitude. Basically in the OR, he's complaining that they're talking about Korean to English translations, and he says, I speak American. And you know what? That fits in Frank's character so perfectly. He's that person who goes to a foreign country expecting them to speak American. Not English, American. He does fit that characterization, and that stereotype has unfortunately continued to this day, and we really need to put the kibosh on it. But he talks about how he shops at an American PX. They have a PX on at the 477? I didn't realize that. But the point being is that Frank is very gung-ho, pro-American, very narrow-minded, and that's very much his characterization as a whole. But this does come into play because Henry contacts Civilian Affairs to try to get their help with dealing with this Korean refugee family, because that's their job. Henry's job is to run a hospital, not run a refugee resettlement camp / center. It's not his job, so he contacts the people whose job it is, and he's not getting enrolled. Well, because he's sick of basically Frank making things worse, he tells Frank, you go contact the Civilian Affairs officer. And Frank actually does get somewhere. He might have almost actually gotten himself a date, too. And Frank acts all offended, but they do sometimes play Frank more effeminate and imply that he could be gay or homosexual, but of course, in other episodes they make it clear that he's not, but he's played that way, which goes into some of the stereotypes of, the gay villain, who's an effeminate man. Again, they're playing up that stuff. This has been a part of Frank's characterization for a while, but I could definitely see Frank being the kind of person who overcompensates to overcome any internal insecurities he may have. But that's enough about Frank's characterization. He does get he actually somehow manages to help the Korean family by getting in contact with the right person to push the right buttons to get something done. So Frank's not totally useless, just incompetent and insensitive. Yeah, that's Frank. And then, of course, with the other plot line, the Korean lady from the village claims one of the doctors is the mother of her child, so Henry assumes it's either Hawkeye or Chapel. Obviously, he knows it's not himself, and he figures it wouldn't be Frank, but there's supposed to be another shift, so that means there's at least, I would say, 2, if not 3 or 4 more doctors. There's also a dentist. They got other candidates. Yeah. Sometimes they forget they have other doctors for the sake of plot. Very common in MASH, which makes sense. They don't need a whole team because it's an ensemble, so why do they need extra characters? That would just be confusing. I wouldn't mind it personally, but hey, it's what it is. Anyhow, Hawkeye and Chapel come in, and they're not the father. Raider comes in, and the young Korean lady's like, he's the father. And I'm just going to cut to the chase. They contact the Judge Advocate General to get this straightened out, and Raider actually does go fond of the baby. It's not his. As he says, he's never done it. Though, season 1 Raider might have. You can definitely tell they are doing much more the naive radar character. Because in some episodes, especially in season 1, they were still toiling with his character, and his movie characterization was a bit more common where he was not as naive. So movie radar could do that. That would make sense, but not TV show radar as we come to know and love. So, like I said, he does go to Grum Fund. Now, Hawkeye and Chopper do perform a blood test at Frank's suggestion, no less. Now, I don't know if they had thought of that, or Frank had actually given them the idea, but they wouldn't go admit that Frank gave them the idea, because they basically like, good job, Frank, for pointing out the obvious. And then they go do a blood test. I wonder if they didn't think of it until Frank pointed it out. Again, Frank's not totally useless, just insensitive and mean. And whatever word I used earlier. So they do that, and the blood test comes back, shows that Radar is not the father. Now, I do want to just take a note, a side tangent, to state that in just some research preparing for my review, that blood tests were back then the only way, besides both parties being truthful, to determine parentage. And it wasn't a foolproof method because, blood is not as unique as DNA testing that we do now. But still, it could at least tell somebody they were not the father for sure. It just couldn't give a definitive that the person is the father. So, Radar's clearly not the father with his blood type. It just will not work out. But he decides he's going to claim anyhow. I think partially because he grew fond of the baby. And that's kind of within Radar's characterization. He's always caring about animals. Anytime there's a baby that comes on into the 477, he's like, oftentimes, if I recall, the character who often comes the closest, always very caring. It's a very common thing with Radar's character, so that's definitely present in this episode. Of course, he can't be the father at all, so granted, I guess there's nothing that's stopping him from still stepping in as a stepfather, but the point being is that in the eyes of the army, this thing is settled. And because the father was actually a GI who knows, dead, transferred home, we don't know, they don't know. They're able to bring both plots together to a resolution. So, through Frank contacting civilian affairs, the refugees get relocated someplace further south, which also means they're safer from the fighting. And also, so the young Korean lady whose name I should have wrote down so I could remember, and her baby, they join with that family to head down. So while she may have lost her family due to shunning, she at least has a new family now that can help raise her daughter. I believe it was a daughter. So, really good episode. I really love how it highlighted the differences between the characters, and it has some pretty good humor. I already mentioned basically just the fun, stupid translation that they were doing in the opening, which the intention was that they're going to be kind of nonsensical and get more nonsensical as they go on within the narrative. I still want to hear from any people who do speak Korean how good that Korean and those translations actually are, because I am curious. I probably could have done more research, but you know what? Engagement bait. Let me know in the comment section down below. And there's a few other good jokes too, like the making fun of Frank, which again, this episode really is a good highlight of Frank's character, despite him not being a major character. It shows that he's not totally incompetent. He does have some strengths. Unfortunately, he's insensitive and a jerk, and nobody likes him, so he can't overcome his flaws because he's an insensitive jerk who has no intention of ever growing up or growing as a character or growing as a person. He has no intention, but still, a good highlight of Frank's character and showing that beneath all his problems, he does have some redeeming qualities. Unfortunately, he doesn't let them resurface enough. And from what I've heard, Larry in Linville was the total opposite of Frank, so I think these moments of humanity out of Frank was more Larry just poking out through his character. That's just my speculation. There's also another joke I would really love to mention is when a representative of the Judge Advocate General comes in. First Henry thought he was from Civilian Affairs. No, he's from the JAG office, and actually I should say the Judge Advocate office. But regardless, because Henry's there along with Captain Pack and Father McKay introduces both of them. He says, "Oh, okay," for Captain Pack, which I think is truthful because one, RK is the English initialism of the Republic of Korea, but it's also R, okay, like okay, like okie dokie. I think that was kind of like a subtle pun they did though. Took me a while to get that from when I very first watched it because I just knew South Korea, not the Republic of Korea. I'm talking about when I was in middle school, by the way. And then, of course, introduces Father McKay, and instead of saying USA or anything like that, he says God, God, because Father McKay is a priest. It's just a fun little bit there, and I thought it was it was a good chuckle out of me. But that concludes my review. I probably have more to say. You guys have more to say, I'm sure, as well. The comment section down below is open for discussion, so I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for watching my video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give this video a like and share. Also, consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date on all my latest content. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the force be with you, always.